know what I just realized? Throughout this channel's 3-year existence, I never made a video on an actual classic Eddsworld video. Huh, no wonder why my now private rant videos suck so much. Anyways, today we are going to be talking about Eddsworld's Zombehs episodes. Let's make one thing clear. Zombies are a large part of Eddsworld. Heck, these episodes are also important to me. They were some of the very first I watched of the show, and in the original Kieranocity intro from 2022 to 2023, a video reel of these episodes were literally the background visuals. Even as we speak, today is September 5th as I'm writing this today, Eddsworld still makes videos and comics with zombies. Okay, they may not be all great, but it's something, alright? And even to this day, both in Eddsworld and my channel, they are present and still kicking. Back in the 2000s, Edd Gould was a massive fan of zombie movies and thrillers, with most of his early animations being about the titular creatures. This, obviously, led to a few episodes of his own web series, Eddsworld, to have stories all about how his characters deal with the flesh-eating beasts, in many dangerous scenarios. Since it's October and everything is spooky and all, I figured it's time for us to look back on these Eddsworld episodes to see what made them such an important part of the franchise. Some of these episodes are the gold standard of what makes Eddsworld the show it was back in the day. 4, or 3, guys battling out with evil creatures with violent weaponry in an edgy 2000 setting. But are all of these episodes actually worthwhile watching after all these years, or were they carried by nostalgia all along? Let's find out with the original episode that started it all, Zombeh Attack 1. Zombeh Attack 1 released all the way back in October of 2005, being in development for quite a few months by Edd, and was an Eddsworld episode where after the main squadron crashed their car into a cemetery, they encounter a pack of zombies that are threatening to start an invasion. This episode is heavily inspired by Edd's favorite movies, like Shaun of the Dead and the Evil Dead films, so much so that the original theme for this episode is just the theme of Shaun of the Dead. Although sadly that music alongside the rest has been replaced in this remaster you can find on Eddsworld Extra. Thankfully, since my footage consists of nothing but images and no audio, we are talking about the original version of this episode. Now, about Zombeh Attack 1. After rewatching this classic episode years after I first seen it and fell in love with Edd's creativity with this genre of episodes, I have to say, this episode is very bare bones. Yeah, I said it. I may dislike a majority of modern Eddsworld for being very badly written and losing the charm of the originals. I feel like the other in-between of the original episodes, the early ones, they don't stand much in terms of content. But enough about that. What is this episode about that makes it that way? Well, while the guys were driving a car on a random night, they ran over a zombie and crashed into a cemetery. After walking around a bit, Matt accidentally gets his arm bitten off and the other 3 run away in safety. Too bad Futura didn't want to help. Edd, Tom and Tord find a pack of zombies around the corner and run away again to hide. And after gaining some weapons to defeat them, find out that Matt has turned into a zombie himself and has switched sides to be the leader of the zombies. After a fight scene involving Edd, Tom and Tord, the latter gets bitten and Edd and Tom run away. But just as they enter the car, the zombified Tord ambushes them and the episode just ends. As you can clearly see, this episode is very simple and even more simple to explain. After all, this is the 3rd ever episode in the entire Eddsworld continuity. Still, I figured that the only way we can really review this episode is by going through a simple positives and negatives list, because that is really what we can only say with an episode with barely anything notable. So, for the positives of this episode, we have the first ever appearance of Matt, arguably the best character in the show. Pretty nice sound design, very funny low-key moments, a cool atmosphere, a funny twist, a good action scene, the very first of many in the franchise, nice callbacks to Edd's favorite movies, and that's pretty much it. This episode's highlights are only the few moments where things are going on and where the personalities of each character shine well. As for the negatives, we have voice acting not being that great, build-up, world building and other non-comedy writing moments also not being that great. The visual style seeming quite janky, with a lot of animation errors present, and the story is quite simple and not too groundbreaking. Now, it may feel like my complaints towards this episode come from a place where I would say that this episode is bad, which it isn't. It is still a good animation after all, but I think that is where the problem lies. This episode is more so just an animation rather than a real story fit enough to be considered a part of the Eddsworld classic canon. At least with an episode like the first Christmas special, you've got yourself scenes where it introduces us to the characters and the setting, and the episode revolves around something the characters can do with. I will admit, this episode is definitely better than Dude Dead Next Door, the episode that came before it, but it is still a very bare bones episode of the show, and is more worth checking out during a marathon or if you're a fan of Shaun of the Dead. I will admit though, this episode does bring back a lot of nostalgia to me. The 2000s style flash animation and sound design, the old voice actor for Tord and the younger voices of Ed, Matt and Tom, Matt just starting to become a character of the series, Tord's old black jacket worn in older episodes, and just the overall vibe of the early episodes being present. In short, Zombeh Attack 1 is good, but only good enough to the point where it achieves being a good introduction rather than a full-blown adventure. But the episode was pretty much successful enough to get a sequel only 7 months later. Zombeh Attack 2 released in May of 2006 and was a direct continuation of the first part, and the story goes that Tord and Matt as zombies have come back from the dead and want to put their souls to rest. So Tord, with the help of Ed, and Matt with the help of Tom, are on a chase to get the Necronomicon so that one of them may finally break their curse. This plot is so much better than the last because it is a very original idea and it fits well with the rivalry part of the characters. Making an episode where 2 versus 2 of them compete with each other, the second part of a Zombeh attack, was genius for this, making this series way more interesting. Actually more of a series now that I think about it. Also, I love how the reason why Ed and Tom are helping them out is just because Ed just got Trent and Tom was just hungover. They really don't care about them, and I love that. If it isn't obvious by this point, Zombeh Attack 2 is a direct upgrade to the original, because it is more in line with what Eddsworld as a series sets to achieve, and what Eddsworld as a series is, instead of direct references just being the whole episode and comedic bits. And things weren't just simple as face value. The episode makes itself feel more original while working up with the references it is trying to make. The jokes and visual gags are way more better written and executed, thanks to a more refined art style. The sound design and voice acting are at their best right now, the atmosphere is better than ever, the animation is smoother, and the fight scene, a scene in this sequel that tributes to the last part, is also just overall better due to its more active nature, and also because it ends well in a comedic twist and as a callback to the previous part. And Matt is better characterized, and the ending is very funny, and it's self-aware. I can't further explain it, man. Zombeh Attack 2 is just the perfect sequel for the first episode. It just feels like a way more in-depth, way more clever, and way more fun take on the zombie genre with Eddsworld. Whenever I think of Zombeh Attack as a series, I think of this episode. It may seem like I didn't have much to say for it despite my praises, but if you feel like you want to know more, you can sit down and watch the episode yourself, which I highly recommend. It still stands as one of my favourite old school Eddsworld episodes ever. My only complaint is that it is quite shorter than the original and I wish there was more meat to its bone. But aside from that, this episode still stands on top as one of the most unique of the show. Also, you can never say no to the episode that gave us "I'm in your car, Edward." Zombeh Attack 2 was an even bigger success than the original, and even being the most viewed episode of the two. So, with this newfound rise in success, only 11 months later, Ed released something brand new in a series of the Eddsworld episodes, Zombeh Attack 3. A third installment? Nobody ever said anything about a third installment. Yes, believe it or not, there is more to the story of Zombeh Attack. In Zombeh Attack 3, released in April 2007, the story continues as Tord's ghost visits Ed and Tom and warns them that Matt is back, and he is worse, stronger and more evil than ever with his zombie horde. So Ed and Tom have to go and stop him. Again. Now, this may sound controversial, but as I was watching this episode before writing my script, I was fully convinced that Zombeh Attack 3 was going to be my favourite out of the bunch. I mean, it's got an even better art style and animation style, an even better sound design and voice acting, the jokes are the best they possibly can, and Matt's characterization is probably some of the best we have ever seen in this episode, making him a way more menacing threat, with his skin being way more grey, moving around with a scooter, and replacing his missing arm with a skeleton arm, making him a really hardcore version of his former self. However, once you look past the essentials of this episode and then focus on its story and premise, it's at that point where I look at the two sequels and pick Zombeh Attack 2 over it. Sorry if I'm breaking some large popular opinion I may or may not know of in the community, and also sorry to any Hearts of Zombeh Attack 3 fans being broken at this moment for my opinion, but I think that this episode, while great on its own, doesn't stand anywhere near to the quality of the second part. I will admit it's way better than Zombeh 1 and manages to achieve everything that episode tried to get, but with the more Eddsworld-like structure of the second episode, Zombeh Attack 3 just feels like it divides the series again, you know? Which is funny, because according to many Eddsworld episodes, all of these chapters are canon, somehow. Well, I can't blame them too much. Continuity wasn't this show's strong point after all. Anyways, I don't think I really have to explain what happens in this episode, because all of the visuals you're seeing can tell you what's happening. Tord calls Edd and Tom to stop the zombies once and for all, they meet up and think of a plan, Matt is getting his horde ready for any sort of resistance, they have a fight scene which is probably the best one in the whole trilogy, and after finding out they both got bitten in the process, the episode slowly fades out and ends on that silent, yet sad cliffhanger as boogity boogity brains. Wow, that killed the mood. So, if you were to look back at Zombeh Attack as a trilogy and ask me what I thought of it, I'd say that it is quite decent. The second part is definitely the highlight, probably because of just how fun the concept is and how it fits well with the rest of the series. Part 3 has to be one in the middle, for having probably the best jokes in animation as well as the fight scene, although it's still a very standard episode of character and character must zob zombies with guns. Part 1, while it made me sadly realize it wasn't that amazing on a rewatch, I still appreciate it for what it did for the series, slowly turning into something really special and for also bringing in Matt as a character. But it is still carried by nostalgia after all. The same year as Zombie Attack 3 we got Santa Claus, which was not only a better episode than literally all of Zombie Attack, but it is also the best episode series that came from the series. Not to mention episodes like Hammer and Fail and Space Face for also being an episode series which did everything that Zombie Attack did better. With all of that being said, despite my criticisms, I can't stay mad at Zombie Attack for not only being a really great introduction to the world of Edd by many, but for also being the first ever Eddsworld episode series, and also for being way more better than Surf and Turf in the end. Yeah, I said it. The next episode we are talking about is quite an odd one out of all the Zombeh episodes in the entire series. Not only did it come out between the releases of Zombie Attack 2 and 3, not only does it have a completely different tone, setting and story as Zombie Attack, but also, it might be better than that entire trilogy. The episode that holds this title is 2006's Zombeh Nation. Released in November of that year, Zombeh Nation was a revived project by Edd that he first started back in 2004, and only revived 2 years later after the positive reception of the first 2 Zombie Attack episodes. And if you ask me, this is the old school Eddsworld episode of all time. I know that sentence makes no sense, but bear with me. Zombeh Nation holds some of the few basic concepts needed to make a good Eddsworld episode. You know, action, comedy, character interactions, a fun setting, great music and art direction. But since people barely care about the progression of this franchise, it was this episode that I have just now noticed was the turning point where Eddsworld has truly become its own thing. And I'm not just saying that because it's the first episode with the more iconic design for Tom. Zombeh Nation is so good that I consider it better than the entirety of Zombie Attack. Let's go through it one by one. The episode is all about Matt going to a train station, only to get greeted with and trapped inside with a pack of zombies on the loose. Because of this, it is up to Edd, Tom and Tord to save him and stop the zombie invasion. This is such a standard yet golden premise for an episode because of how well its works contrasted between it and the original Zombie Attack. Zombie Attack felt like a simple animation with self-inserted characters who go through the average works of zombie apocalypse, while Zombeh Nation, much like Zombeh 2, is reliant on how the characters and the world around them are like, and make them so unique. I really do think that out of all the funniest Eddsworld episodes we got in the show's history, all of it can be traced back to Zombeh Nation and what it truly set up for the series. The cast are a pretty standard group of fellows, all with the exception of their special quirks and fights, such as Edd showing a big love for cola and bacon, Matt being way too sassy for his own good, Tom being a drunk punching bag, and Tord being an edgy tough guy. All of these personalities clash and connect with each other so well to the point where it isn't either too sweet or too bitter. They're very simple to understand as characters, but to understand their dynamics are another thing entirely. And once you do, everything just clicks together so well. Matt can be very silly despite how confident he is into looking cool. Tom doesn't get used to the wacky punching bag nature his friends treat him with because of his grounded view on life. Tord easily punches, fights and shoots down things or others without second thought, and Edd is such a lover for bacon and cola that he will jump his friend to get a single can and plan to take over the world with only those 2 items. Man, where's the hotline for a mental hospital when you need it? I think that's what makes Zombie Nation's more Eddsworld oriented setting to work so much better. They're like Looney Tunes characters instead of an edgy Newgrounds animation, and it all especially comes full circle knowing that the zombies in this episode are actually less threatening than in Zombie 1. Instead of ripping someone's arm even from a slight distance, you can easily just push them, hit them with mobs or cave in their faces with toy monkeys. Yet, despite how easy they can be handled, the crew just decided to go overkill with all of these weapons, and especially with something they dub a Bathmobile. Okay, I take back what I said about Ed's coal and bacon plan. The fact they thought to make a bathtub into a vehicle they can kill zombies from is even more insane, and also funnier knowing that Tom suggested it to be a better idea that they somehow agreed on. The Eddsworld guys are such chuds, and I love them for it. This is what I really love the episode for. Not because it does something special with the zombie formula, because it doesn't have to. I love it because it's the first ever Eddsworld episode to make the blueprint to how to make an amazing Eddsworld episode. The animation is charming, the voice acting is iconic, the art style is so fun, the comedy and fight scenes are top notch, and it's the reason why, despite over 20 years later, and despite it being made in a time of a very different culture, Eddsworld is so timeless. Most of the time. So overall, Zombie Nation is one of the best classic Eddsworld episodes out there. It works so well for characterizing the iconic crew of Eddsworld as the characters they are, works on the original formula of the earlier videos, and makes such a simple yet very fun story of 4 guys just battling it out with zombies. It's better than all of Zombeh Attack, and I can't think of any other episode that could ever top. Did you really think this would be a true Eddsworld zombie video if I didn't talk about Fun Dead? Oh, you little devilish bear. Fun Dead is Eddsworld's most popular episode, netting over 100 million views to this very day. Released back in February of 2014 as the first ever episode of Eddsworld Legacy after the passing of the late Edd Gould, Fun Dead is an episode all about Ed, Matt, and Tom going to a theme park called Astifland, where unbeknownst to them, a zombie apocalypse is taking place. Hijinks ensue like crazy. I don't even have to tell you anything else other than this episode is absolutely legendary, both in visuals, audio, scripting, comedy, animation, cinematography, and so much more. If you combine the apocalypse concept from Zombeh 1, the characterization of Zombeh 2, the visual quality of Zombeh 3, and the humor of Zombeh Nation, and amplify these concepts to the max, you get such an interesting, such hilarious, such joyful and entertaining episode of a web show that has never gotten to this point of quality by then or since then. And if you don't seem to agree with me, sit down and listen. The key factor that makes Fun Dead the episode that it is the fact that it's the ultimate homage and tribute to someone like Edd Gould. Silly, unaware fun about you and your friends? Check. Zombie movie references and well reenacted tropes? Check. References to works that inspired the creator? Check. Cartoony visuals and animation? Coloring? Background visuals? The movements of each character and the visual gags that come with it, as well as many other things that make this episode great? Checked by the power of 43. I can't think of any other episode that I have laughed at every time I watched ever since I saw this episode back when I was 9. The decision to let the cast's dumb side shine up in the episode, with the offside being that the zombies are very scary and threatening this time, was a very smart decision, considering that if it weren't for that, this episode wouldn't have been as great, and that's why I love it so much. Fun Dead as an episode works so well because not only does it amplify what Zombie Nation set off with the Eddsworld style of writing as a whole, it clearly evolves it to be much fast-paced and snappy, making literally the perfect style of Eddsworld humor. Take this whole section with Ed. He looks around and sees rides being occupied by people, but as zombies storm in and they flee, he rushes to the ride, tackling a poor bloke to get eaten by a zombie. Then after a little visual, the guy comes back and amplifies its importance, and after Ed sits down and keeps his arms and legs in the ride, he takes the hand of the remaining victim to literally place it with him, and make this face all the while he rides the coaster. This scene is not only so funny that I cackle from the top of my nose every time I watch, it fits well with the characterization of Ed for all these events to be related to pun humor. You know, keeping limbs inside rides and telling short people they don't deserve to live. Another amazing thing about this episode is the atmosphere and visuals. I literally cannot think of any other Eddsworld episode that looked consistently good at this scale. Take that, the End Part 2. The colors and the backgrounds all look amazing, with little details and Easter eggs related to old Eddsworld references, or references to media Edd Gould loved in general. The animation, facial expressions, and the details of squash and stretch, and all the other principles are mixed in so well to make it like the grounded and edgy yet cartoony world that the show lives in. The characters are drawn and shaped oh so well for their either cinematic purposes or comedic purposes, and all look the best they can possibly be at the exact moments they need to. I didn't notice a single time where I felt like they had to slow down with animation quality just so they could keep the action scenes to keep their impressive look. Kudos to the Eddsworld Legacy team for actually balancing a budget. And how about that music, man? Zombeh has the best music or sound design in any Eddsworld episode. The voice performances by Tom, Matt and Tim, as well as other actors like Eddie Bowley, have all done an incredible job at giving the characters the cartoony energy in their voices. And the music is an overall bop. I can't tell you how many times I listened to the theme song on loop as a kid without being overblown with 12-digit numbers. This isn't even to mention the plot-related writing, the cameos and attention to detail, the whole entertainment factor and pace of the episode, every single moment happening exactly when it needs to, and each and every single little thing being considered carefully whenever it is supposed to happen. Zombeh is a blast of laughter from start to end that is very shocking to know considering I haven't seen episodes of any TV series to have an episode of such quality. Zombeh is a masterpiece, both in terms of Eddsworld as a franchise and internet animation as a whole. It is the perfect tribute and perfect joyride of the world of Eddsworld, and it is so delicate and flawless that I'm so happy an episode like this got the attention it deserved. 100 million views is one explosion of an achievement. Congratulations to the prior Eddsworld team for making one of the best TV show episodes of all time. Ed would be proud. Also, it has little Tom in it. Everything is flawless and perfect if you have little Tom in it. Well, that was one fun ride. And what a way to end it, huh? Eddsworld was always very fun when it came to reoccurring gags or themes. We all love seeing things that we associate with certain franchises and series, and if you ask me, whenever I think about zombies and cartoons, my mind will always jump with Eddsworld joy. Even throughout the many years the show has been going on, and changing for either the better or worse, seeing these fun guys just have the most fun trips or fights ever with a horde of the undead background chuds always seems to just bring out something from me and remind me why I love this series. To me, Eddsworld was never about the deep character dynamics, it wasn't about the toppest tier animation, it wasn't about drama, and it certainly wasn't about whatever they're doing now. To me, it was about three edgy guys fighting against edgy monsters and all the while having fun. If you stuck around till now, thanks for coming with me throughout this journey. If you haven't seen any of these episodes yet, I highly recommend checking them all out. They are still to this day one of the cornerstones of online animation. And Edd Gould's love for drawing zombies and having fun will never be forgotten. Oh, also, Eddsworld Beyond. When are we getting a Zombeh themed episode? It's clear you still really like using them in shorts, so come on then, step it up, let's see a zombie episode again. Oh, but this time, make it funny. And also good looking. And make it so the characters are also fun sounding. Oh, and bring back Tord. Oh wait, you are? Never mind, keep him where he is, let him stay dead. Return him as a zombie. No wait, make Santa Claus the fourth cast member. I'm sure that would be good. Oh, and also... Hey, I'm not done yet. And also add more visual jokes. I want some old references too. Will you ever bring back Tom? Or Bing? Or Paul? Or Chris? Will you bring back any of them? Ah, the credits are already over. Forget it. Bye.